Hello and welcome back, or just welcome if you're new here. I'm Common Free. I moved to Calgary, Canada a year and 5 months ago. Prior to moving here, I watched a lot of this kind of video and I found them to be incredibly helpful. And a lot of the things when you get here, you're like, oh, that's what they were talking about. But having now lived here for a year and a bit, there have been a few things that I noticed that I don't remember featuring in any of the videos that I watched, or things that still surprised me, even though I thought that I had done a lot of reading or a lot of watching videos around Calgary before we moved here. So in today's video, that's what I'm going to discuss with you. The few things that I still found to be experience of Calgary, having now moved here, and what I think might be useful for somebody to know if they're considering moving here, or just in preparation for moving here. Right, so let's get into it. And I'm gonna start by speaking about the weather. Yes, we know it's cold. That is not a surprise to anybody. I'm sure you've seen that in all the videos. Everybody knows Canada can get really cold. Calgary in particular, Alberta can get really cold. But something I think worth noting, because when we moved here, I was fully prepared for it's going to snow day in and day out for like 6 months of the year. It's going to be freezing throughout winter, and winter's going to be really long and it's going to be really harsh. And it's a good thing that I had that mindset, because we moved here in October, the first year when we moved here, and 2 weeks later, literally, it started snowing, and it did feel like it snowed almost nonstop for about 6 months. And it was pretty cold for a long period of time. And I was like, okay, this is what I was expecting. Then we get to this year, which is our second winter now. I'm filming this in February. And first of all, the snow came later than the previous year that we had it. And in the previous year, people had told us that the snow had actually come like quite late that year as well. And aside from that, once it had come, I was like, okay, now we're gonna have basically 6 months of snow and cold and mostly being indoors. About a week later, it went to really mild conditions, like very nice to go outside, very nice to just do things. And I thought, oh, okay, it's gonna be a week or so. But no, it carried on. And I don't wanna say for the full like November, December, but November and December were pretty mild weather. And it was really nice to like go outside and to do things. So I had this expectation that just cold and gonna snow and it's gonna be like that, but this winter has not been like that. And this winter has shown me that Calgary has pretty unpredictable weather and pretty unpredictable winters, because when discussing it with people, they're like, yeah, this is what you can expect from Calgary, like very different winters and different weather conditions than you expect. Like it's not going to be the same every single year. So that's what I wanted to share as my first point is, yes, the winters are long. Yes, it can get really cold, but it isn't necessarily that every single year it's going to snow and be cold for the entire 6 months. Like some winters are going to be a little bit more mild. Also, just an example of it being milder this year was we wanted to go take a walk on Nose Hill Park, which is a huge park in the middle of Calgary. Well, not in the middle up of Calgary. And on that particular day, it was late in December, we were going to take Elba on a sleigh. And there was like barely any snow on Nose Hill at that point. And I guess that brings me to my next point, which I'm staying on the point of weather. My guess is if you've watched videos like this, you have heard about the Chinooks, the Chinook winds that come here in Calgary. If you haven't, and this is your first time hearing about it, that is a bit of a surprise unless this is your first time watching a video of this type about Calgary. But the Chinook winds are essentially winds that come, I think they come over the mountain, but they are warm. So typically when they come, it causes like major fluctuations in the weather that we'll have. So it will literally go from being like incredibly cold to very mild, like the next day. And then it will be like that for a couple of days or a week, sometimes 2 weeks. Okay, so whenever you speak to anybody about, hey, yeah, it's cold in Calgary, like how are you finding the winter? At least we have the Chinooks. Yes, the Chinooks. Okay, it's like literally a thing, like you talk about it all the time. People tell us about it like all the time and it comes up. What I didn't know about them was if you are prone to headaches and migraines, there is a chance that they will trigger that for you. Now, I didn't know this moving here, and I am prone to headaches and migraines. So the first couple of times I experienced it, I thought it was just because I was pregnant and maybe more susceptible to the weather. But now I've had a year of not being pregnant. I still have headaches and migraines almost every single time there's a Chinook. So sometimes I will like feel it coming and I'll literally walk to the window and I'll look whether I can see the arch in the sky, because I've come to know that they're pretty much going to trigger headaches for me. And prior to moving to Canada, I had never, except for when I had measles, had a migraine that lasted more than 24 hours. Since having moved here, they sometimes go up to 3 days for me. So it's not just that they bring them on. My experience has been that they last longer than what I'm used to experiencing. Now, this is a point of debate. If you Google it, some sources are going to say, yes, this happens. Some are going to say, no, it doesn't happen. In my experience, it happens for me. Like, I experienced it and then I asked people about it. And they then were like, yes, I have a cousin that happens to, or yes, that happens to me. And it happens to loads of people here. I spoke to a chiropractor about it and I spoke to an osteopath about it. And both of them also said, like, loads of people will say, no, it doesn't happen. But both of them have clients who are saying it happens to them. Anyway, so I don't know if it will or won't happen for you if you are prone to headaches or migraines. I haven't heard of anybody who like never gets headaches or never gets migraines and then suddenly moves here and gets them. Like, I've only heard of people who are typically prone to them and then who experience them with a Chinook wind. So Ian, for example, has not, like, when they come, there's no difference for him. So maybe it won't happen for you, but that has been my experience. All right, next point, and we're still on the weather, but I think when you're moving to a new place or you're considering moving to a new place, the weather and the climate is a big deal. So therefore, it's gonna take up a chunk of a video like this. So the next point is that Calgary is very, very dry, especially in winter. Now, for someone like me with an oily skin, that's been great. But someone like Ian who has a dry skin, it definitely poses a bit of a challenge. So for him, it's been a little bit rough with the move here and with how dry it is. Like, in our house, literally, we currently have 3 humidifiers going. And you might be thinking that's unique to us, but that's not unique to us. A lot of people that we speak to speak about the number one purchase they make for winter is a humidifier, or some people just make do with the humidifiers on their furnace. The house we're currently living in does not have a humidifier on or a humidifying function on the furnace, so we do have 3 humidifiers going through winter. Anyway, for loads of people, this does impact their skin, and the discussion of which moisturizers to use throughout winter is a big discussion. I think aside from that, Calgary is generally pretty dry. Also, the way that the houses are heated, there's little warm air being blown out of the air vents. So your house is also going to be more dry as a result of the heating systems and how they heat. Right, so that's just something to factor into your budget, I guess. If you are impacted by dry air, that maybe you want to purchase a humidifier or 2 for winter. Then just before I move on, one of the other things I wanted to say, and I've covered this in another video of mine or I've spoken about it, is that Ian's skin issues were really aggravated or flared up really badly after we moved here. And a lot of people asked me, like, did they get worse when you moved to Calgary? And yes, it definitely got worse moving here. I think that the dry air is a contributing factor. But other people we've also spoken to said that if they had allergies, in particular skin allergies, they did find that moving to Calgary, even from other provinces in Canada, did aggravate their skin allergies for a period of time until their body adjusted to the climate. So that's just something to be mindful of. I'm not sure if it happens to every single person. Okay, then last thing on this topic, and maybe you're gonna judge us for not knowing this, but I really didn't know this before we moved here, and I didn't see this in other videos. So in winter, realistically, you spend a bunch of time indoors. So that come spring and summer, you're very excited to open up all your windows, let your house air, spend a lot of time outside. Literally try to spend as much as possible time outside. Except our first spring here, spring and summer, there were several days that it was not healthy for us to go outside as a result of the air quality. So basically, because of the wildfires that happened in the area and it blowing the smoke across Calgary, the air was so smoky, it was not healthy to go outside and it was not healthy to leave your windows open. And you think like it's a day here or there, but sometimes it was like up to 4 days at a time. And it was much more frequently than we expected it to happen. Now, some of the people we spoke to did say that this year's wildfires were much worse than previous years, and based off of the news, they also said it was much worse than previous years. So we don't know like what to compare it to because it was our first spring and summer. But that being said, wildfires does happen, I think, almost every year in this general area. So you're going to get some days where the air quality is not great. So that brings me to another purchase you might want to factor into your budget, and that is an air purifier for spring and summer. We didn't think about that at all. And then the first time the air quality became so poor, Ian went out and bought an air purifier and actually had to drive to a shop that's a lot further than the shops in our area to find one that was in stock. So definitely people like went out and bought air purifiers. Okay, so that's it on the weather front, and I'm sorry if it sounded negative. That was not my intention at all. I thought it might be useful to know those things. So just before I move on from the weather topic, what I do want to say here with the winters, yes, they're long. Yes, it can get incredibly cold. But one of the reasons we picked Calgary to move to in the first place was that we watched videos like this and we read up about it, and what we saw is that it said that the sun shines here a lot. So in this video, I just want to confirm that that has been our experience. The sun does shine here a lot. It is beautiful and bright and like clear blue skies most days of the year here in Calgary. And I find that that really helps with your general well-being throughout pretty much all the seasons, but mostly in winter. When you're looking outside, yes, it's super cold outside, but it is so beautiful and it's so bright. And depending on how your house faces, you might get a lot of beautiful sun coming into your house, and that is awesome. It definitely also helps with the experience of winter being such short days and then summer being such long days. Coming from South Africa, that's not something that we're used to. I mean, there are some fluctuations in the length of the day from summer to winter, but I mean, it's pretty minor in South Africa. Here, it's like major differences in the length of daylight that you get in a day from winter to summer. And definitely with how short the winter days are, that bright sunlight is really wonderful. All right, next thing I'm going to talk about is money. So yeah, you probably have read that Canada is expensive. Yes, Canada is expensive. That being said, I think right now a lot of places are more expensive than they used to be. Alberta, however, is better because we only pay 5% tax. And that's what I wanted to talk about. You probably already know this, that the price you see in a store or online, if you're shopping online, is not the price you're going to pay. The price that you are seeing is exclusive of tax. Where in South Africa, when you see a price, it is usually inclusive of VAT. But here, the prices don't include the tax amount, and you need to get good at adding 5% to the price that you see. We knew this when we moved here, that the tax is not included. That being said, you know it, but I still don't remember that it's like that. So often I will be shopping online or in a store and get to the pay point, and it will catch me off guard that in my mind, I had a particular price or a total in mind, but I consistently and continuously forget to add the tax to my thinking when I'm shopping. So for me, even after a year and 5 months of being here, it is not habitual to remember to add tax when I'm looking at the price of something. And I realized that because I purchased something for a friend the other day, and then she sent me the money. And I saw that she had thought, because I just gave her like what they cost when I saw the tag. But when she paid me, she had taken tax into consideration and added that amount. And I don't think that I would have thought to do that. I don't, if somebody said, oh, this is the price point, I don't think that I would have remembered to add tax to that before I pay them, just because that's still not second nature to me to do that. Anyway, so that's just a random reminder that you know it, but for it to become habitual in your shopping is two different things. Okay, next one, but still on the money front. We heard high and a low, that Canada's banking system is backwards and it's frustrating and it's really like outdated and it's not very good and so forth. Like, I heard this so many times moving here. So when we moved here, that was my expectation, that the banking systems are going to be really not so great to use. Maybe it was a good thing that my expectations were incredibly low when it came to the banking system, but I just want to say, I haven't experienced major frustrations with the banking system. For the most part, like whatever I've wanted to do, I've been able to do. They have banking apps at work I can do. And yeah, they don't have like EFTs the way that we know them to be in South Africa, but they do have e-transfers using somebody's cell phone number or their email address, which is pretty easy to do. And I actually think you enter in less stuff than we had to do for EFTs in South Africa. So it's actually faster to do it. So the only, I guess, like banking thing we had was right after we moved here when we purchased a car. We had to do like, I don't know, like a deposit check or something. And because we didn't know what we were doing, it did definitely take longer and there were more steps involved because we'd never done it before. But aside from that, like, we got some checks in the mail, like in terms of payment, but then you just scan it in on your banking app. But then you can also just change the settings. And since then we don't get checks in the mail anymore, like sort of tax stuff, they just electronically transfer that as well. So I guess the point that I want to make is I don't find the banking system to be so backwards or so frustrating. I found it to be perfectly fine and easy to use. Right, the next one is random, but it's around subscriptions for shops. In South Africa, I did not have a subscription to any kind of shop. And what I mean by that is a paid membership or a paid subscription. Here, it really seems to be a thing to be a member or have a subscription to a particular shopping platform or a particular shop, that you pay a monthly amount or a yearly amount and then you save money in your shopping. I have a fear that that can get out of hand really quickly and that you don't realize like how many shops you're paying this subscription to and then maybe you're not using them as much. So I'll say in this video, I have 3 subscriptions or memberships to shops. The first one is that I have Amazon Prime. I most definitely use my Amazon Prime a lot. The second one is I order from Spud, which is like a type of organic, eco-friendly, sustainable business online, and I like getting free delivery by being a member of them. And then the final one is a Costco membership. So the first year of our Costco membership was actually gifted to us as a housewarming gift. So the first year we didn't pay for that and the person took us and it was like a whole experience of Costco. And then I found that I liked having a Costco membership. So I'm not sure if that's something I would have done on my own, but given that somebody gifted it to us and we had the whole experience of going shopping at Costco and seeing the items that we like to buy, I did renew our membership for this year because I like having a Costco membership. So I've limited to those 3 subscriptions at this point, Amazon, Spud, and Costco. But I just want to say it in this video is that I think it can be very tempting to become members or have this subscription from shopping kind of things, but you might want to be mindful of how many of those expenses you're racking up in a month and if you're actually using your membership or your subscription. And actually on that note, that's another thing that companies do here that I didn't experience with South Africa, is that most places that I shop online give me the option of doing a subscription to various products. So one, I'm like a member of them, but then also I can subscribe and then save by having this item delivered to me. It's set like every whatever periodic amount of time. And that was obvious, I guess, with Amazon doing that, but I realized that other shops also do that. Anyway, so I'm just sharing that in terms of like if you're really into budgeting or how to save money, that you might want to see which subscriptions do you want or like memberships, and then do you want to subscribe to a certain amount of products that you purchase on a regular basis. And that, yeah, it can get a bit, I guess, more complicated doing shopping, but maybe if you use the system well, maybe you could save a lot doing that. But moving on to my next point about money is that I spoke earlier about like Canada being expensive, but the perception that we experience is different because the actual amount looks smaller coming from South Africa. So even a year later, now for me, sometimes I'm caught by the whole thing of like, oh, that's just $20. But if you look at what $20 is in rands, like it seems like a small amount, but depending on what you're purchasing, like that might not be a small amount of money. What I've experienced here is it can be easy to spend a lot more money because the amounts look like they're smaller, but that's just because, you know, the exchange rate and when you're buying something in rands, the actual amount of numbers there is more numbers than what we're seeing when we buy something here. And people ask me, do I still think in terms of rands like a year and whatever later? And the answer is sometimes, because I still have a South African bank account. So yeah, sometimes I do still think in terms of rands, but for the most part, like I do mostly think in terms of dollars when I'm price comparing to other things. But when I'm thinking about the total expense of something, often I will think about it in terms of rands. Okay, that's all that I wanted to say on money. The last category, or just like a final point that I want to make, is on people. All right, so what you've probably heard about Canadians is that they are friendly. And I just want to confirm that. Canadians, in our experience, having moved here to Calgary, have been very warm, very welcoming, and very friendly. People are so polite. It is so easy to just make conversations with people. It's very lovely. But then on that note, what I wanted to say was a new experience for me is I'm not used to strangers wanting to have like a full-on conversation with me. Don't get me wrong, South Africans are very, very friendly. Like, I find that South Africans are also so warm, so welcoming, and I feel that it's quite easy to make friends in South Africa. It's quite common for someone who doesn't know you very well to invite you to their house for a braai. So I'm used to friendly. But what was different for me here is like, if I was in a shop or I was dealing with somebody in like a more business kind of context, just the way of speaking and like the kind of questions or taking interest in things and wanting to have a conversation with me was new. So how I experienced this is like sometimes I'd overhear a conversation, I'd see people chatting, and my assumption would be these people have known each other for years. And then based off of the context, I pick up that they literally just met. And I've also had it where somebody asks me a question and I think they're just kind of like being polite. So I smile and nod and they're like, no, but like, what is this thing? Or they actually wanted to know something about what I was doing and have a conversation about that. But I'm not used to that. So I was just like being a little socially awkward there. But anyway, now I'm used to it and now I respond properly. And that is what I want to end off today's video, is that I've really experienced that. It's quite lovely living here in terms of the people. And anyway, I hope that whatever else I shared in this video gives you a little bit of insight into Calgary, or at least our experience of Calgary, helps you prepare if you're on your way to move here, or helps factor into the decisions if you're considering moving here to Calgary. I'm sure there's a lot more stuff that I didn't include in today's video, so you can let me know if you want me to continue to make more of these videos, but you can also just ask me specific questions if you are considering moving here and there's stuff that you want to hear our experience about. I'd be happy to share that. Just pop it in the comments below. As per the usual, if you like this video, please like this video. And if you like my content in general, it's super helpful for me if you subscribe to my channel.